Ethan once said love was supposed to make you brave. But standing in the recording studio that Tuesday morning, watching Oliver smile at my brother, I realized love only made me a coward. The world didn't pause for heartbreak. The red on-air light blinked as if mocking me, and Oliver's laughter filled the room, the same soft laugh that used to make my chest ache in the sweetest way. Except now it just burned. Oliver Bennett, the rising singer-songwriter everyone adored and the man who'd unknowingly stolen my heart. He was magnetic. Messy hair, honey-colored eyes, and the kind of smile that made you want to believe in second chances. The kind of man who could make a silence feel like music. And then there was my brother, Caleb. Charming, reckless, the family's golden boy. The man Oliver's heart apparently beat for. I didn't find out by accident. No, fate has a sick sense of humor. It started with a sound check. I was helping Oliver test the mic, adjusting levels on the mixing board when he suddenly asked me to hold his phone some new songwriting app he'd been using. The screen lit up with a note titled Him. I shouldn't have opened it, but I did, and what I read shattered me. He doesn't know what he does to me. Every time he plays that old guitar, I swear the world disappears. I want to tell him. I want to tell Caleb I didn't read the rest. I didn't need to. The letters blurred as my heart fell out of rhythm, replaced by the cold, cruel realization that I'd been falling for a man who was already lost to my own brother. From that day, every glance, every smile, every goddamn lyric he sang felt like a dagger disguised as love. Oliver never noticed the change in me. Or maybe he did, maybe he thought I was just tired from work, from the endless hours in the studio. But the truth was, I was tired from pretending. The hardest part? I couldn't even hate him, because every time I looked at him, I saw the same gentle soul who stayed late to help me fix a track, who made bad coffee and worse jokes, who believed in music the way I wanted to believe in love. And maybe that's what love really is, not a fire that burns, but a quiet ache that refuses to fade. The studio lights hummed softly. Oliver was strumming his guitar, lost in a melody he hadn't yet named. I watched from the glass window of the control booth, pretending to tweak settings, pretending I didn't care. His voice carried through the mic, raw and beautiful, breaking somewhere between sorrow and longing. If I told you I was lost before I met you, would you stay? Caleb clapped, smiling proudly from the corner. Damn, that's beautiful, man. Oliver's eyes lit up. You think so? I turned away before I could see more. My throat tightened. It wasn't jealousy. It was something deeper, the slow drowning of a heart that realized it was invisible. When the session ended, Oliver caught up with me in the hallway. Hey, he said, breathless, his guitar slung over his shoulder. You okay? You've been distant lately. I forced a laugh. Yeah, just a lot on my mind. Same here, he said softly, his eyes flickering like he wanted to say something else. You ever feel like you want to tell someone something, but you're scared it'll change everything? I froze. The air between us thickened. Yeah, I whispered. All the time. He smiled sadly, then walked away, leaving me with a silence that felt heavier than any sound. That night, I sat in my apartment with the city humming outside my window, thinking about how love always finds the cruelest timing. My phone buzzed. A text from Caleb. You free tomorrow? Oliver and I are grabbing dinner. You should come. I stared at the message until the screen dimmed. Then I threw the phone aside. Of course, Caleb didn't know. He never saw the way I looked at Oliver. He never noticed how my chest tightened whenever they talked. My brother was always the one people noticed, taller, louder, magnetic in a way I never could be. I thought I'd made peace with that, until Oliver walked into our lives. The next day, I showed up at the restaurant anyway. Maybe I wanted closure. Maybe I just wanted to see how far I could pretend. Oliver smiled when he saw me. You came. His joy was genuine, that's what made it hurt more. Wouldn't miss it, I said, my voice steady only because I'd practiced it in the mirror. Caleb was already there, charming the waitress as usual. The three of us sat together, laughter filling the space, but I barely heard a word. My gaze kept drifting to Oliver, the way he leaned toward my brother when he talked, the light in his eyes, the warmth that wasn't mine to claim. Then, halfway through dinner, something strange happened. Caleb stood up to take a call outside. Oliver turned to me, suddenly serious. "Ethan," he said, his voice trembling slightly, "can I tell you something?" My heart skipped. "Sure." He looked down at his hands, then back up. His eyes were glassy, full of something raw and aching. "It's about Caleb," he said. Of course it was. "I think I'm falling for him," Oliver whispered. And just like that, the world went silent again. Oliver's confession hung in the air, soft but heavy like a single note that refused to fade. I didn't answer. Couldn't. My throat closed around the words I wanted to scream, the pain I wanted to bury. He was looking at me with those same honey-colored eyes that had once felt like home, and now they just reminded me of everything I could never have. "Ethan," he said again, his voice fragile. "You're quiet. Are you okay?" "Okay." Such a simple word for such a complicated kind of heartbreak. I forced a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Yeah, I'm happy for you, man." He studied my face for a moment, maybe sensing the crack beneath the lie, but he nodded anyway. "Thanks. It means a lot. You're one of the few people I trust with this." That was the cruelest part. I was the one he trusted, not the one he loved. When Caleb came back, I excused myself, muttering something about needing fresh air. I stepped out into the night, the city lights blurring through my unshed tears. I wanted to scream into the cold, to tell the universe it wasn't fair that I'd loved quietly, purely, and still lost. But love doesn't care about fairness. It never has. Weeks passed. The studio buzzed with energy. Oliver's album was gaining traction, and Caleb had become a sort of muse for him. They spent hours together, writing, laughing, sometimes arguing over lyrics, always orbiting each other like two stars destined to collide. And I watched from the edges, pretending I was fine. Until one night, everything broke. We were recording late, just the three of us. The rain outside hit the glass windows like a drumbeat. Caleb had stepped out to take a call again, leaving Oliver and me alone in the dim studio light. He was sitting on the floor, guitar in his lap, strumming absent-mindedly. His hair fell into his eyes, and for a moment, he looked unbearably beautiful. "Do you ever wonder," he said softly, not looking up, "if love always finds the wrong people first?" I froze. He lifted his gaze then, and for the first time, there was something in his expression I couldn't read. "What do you mean?" I asked carefully. "I mean," he sighed, shaking his head. "When I met Caleb, I thought I knew what I wanted. But lately," his voice trailed off, "lately, I feel like I've been writing songs for someone else without realizing it." My heart stopped. "Who?" I asked, barely breathing. He didn't answer right away. He just looked at me, really looked at me, as if searching for something familiar in my face. Then he whispered, "You." The word shattered the air between us. I stared at him, disbelief crashing over me like a wave. "What?" He set his guitar down and leaned forward. "I didn't mean for it to happen, Ethan. I swear. I thought what I felt for Caleb was love. But when I'm around you," he exhaled shakily, "you make the world quiet. You make it make sense." It was everything I'd wanted to hear and everything I was terrified of. "Oliver," I whispered, "don't do this." "Do what?" "Don't tell me things you don't mean." He looked hurt. "I mean it." "Then why Caleb?" I snapped, louder than I meant to. "Why write about him? Why fall for him first?" He didn't flinch. "Because he was the one I thought I could love safely. You," he took a trembling breath. "You were the one I actually loved. And that scared the hell out of me." My heart cracked open. I wanted to believe him. God, I did. But love, after all this time, felt like walking barefoot on broken glass, each step uncertain, painful, fragile. Before I could answer, the door opened. Caleb stood there, silent, rain dripping from his jacket. He'd heard everything. "Wow," he said, his voice flat. "So this is what's been going on." "Caleb," I started, but he raised a hand. "Save it." He looked between us, his expression unreadable. "You know what's funny?" I was gonna tell Oliver tonight that I didn't feel the same way. Guess it doesn't matter now. He gave a small, bitter laugh. You two deserve each other. And then he walked out. For a long time, no one said a word. The rain kept falling, and the silence between us was unbearable. Ethan, Oliver whispered finally. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. I shook my head. It's not your fault. He looked at me, desperate. Then what now? I didn't know. I just knew that something inside me had shifted, something tender, something hopeful. I reached out, brushing my fingers against his. Maybe, I said softly, we start over. Not as the guy who fell for my brother's crush, but as two people who finally stopped lying to themselves. His hand closed around mine. I'd like that. The weeks that followed weren't easy. Caleb avoided me for days. Then one afternoon, he showed up at my apartment, looking exhausted but calm. He didn't say anything at first, just sat down on the couch, staring at the floor. Finally, he muttered, "You love him, don't you?" I nodded. He sighed, rubbing his face. I used to think love was supposed to be simple. You like someone, they like you back. End of story. He looked at me then, eyes soft. But maybe it's not supposed to be simple. Maybe it's supposed to change you. I didn't realize I was crying until he pulled me into a hug. I'm sorry, he whispered, for being blind, for not seeing how much you were hurting. We stayed like that for a long time, the kind of silence that mends more than words ever could. Months later, Oliver and I stood together on the same pier where he'd once confessed. The sun was setting again, painting the world gold. His guitar rested against the railing, and his fingers brushed against mine as the breeze carried the scent of salt and pine. He smiled. You ever think we'd end up here? I smiled back. No, but I'm glad we did. He leaned closer, his voice barely a whisper. Me too. And when he kissed me soft, slow, certain the world finally felt right. Not perfect, not without scars, but real. Love wasn't about who we were supposed to choose. It was about who made us brave enough to choose anyway. And as the last light of the day faded over the lake, I realized something. I hadn't lost anything at all. I had simply found the kind of love that doesn't need to be loud to be true. The kind that stays. The kind that finally lets you breathe. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.